Let's head into the headlines now. See what the papers are saying in Nigeria this morning. Really some troubling headlines, and others you might call interesting. We have journalists in the studio. Charles Ideho is here, and broadcast journalist as well, and public relations consultant, Ambrose Igboke. It's good to have you in the studio, gentlemen.
Morning.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Right. Let's begin with the Daily Sun. Daily Sun is where we start from this morning. God will judge suicide bombers. President Buhari is saying that, and 31 killed in Borno attack. Okay. From there, let's go to the blueprint. Kogi Bayelsa polls test for EU IRI in NDI reports. INEC is saying that, and it says we can't deregister parties. 20 APC Goba aspirants reject indirect primaries. Okay, you find all that on the front page of the blueprint. From there, let's go to the Nigerian News Direct. Suicide bombers kill 30, injure 42 others in Borno. Air Force returns to Sambisa Forest. Okay, the much talked about Sambisa Forest. That's the headlines on the News Direct. Let's go to New Telegraph now. The New Telegraph has APC goes spiritual as Supreme Court decides Adeleke Oyetola's fate. And Apex Court fixes July 5 for judgment on Osun Goba poll. And INEC APC asked Supreme Court to dismiss PDP's appeal. Okay, you find all that on the front page of the New Telegraph. Okay, from the New Telegraph, let's go to the Guardian. Listen to Obasanjo, others. Fulani leaders urge Buhari and quote, caution president over crisis across the nation. And 30 confirmed killed, 42 injured in fresh Borno attack. Tension in Taraba as suspected herders seek or sack communities. And NYC ponders safety of core members. You find all that on the front page of The Guardian. All right, The Vanguard is our next paper now, and the last one. Oshodi-Apapa Expressway, no concrete plans to restore lasting sanity. Investigation is revealing this. Okay, you can find this on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. All right, gentlemen, I'd like us to talk about security. You recall that just less than 48 hours ago, there was a twin bomb blast in Borno State, in Konduga, and we also have not forgotten the killings in Niger State, and there's a curfew in Taraba State right now. When it comes to all of this, but yet the Inspector General of Police has said that crime rate has reduced drastically in comparative terms here and there. Let me start with you, Charles, on this. What is your take?
Well, if the IG is saying the crime rate has reduced, he may mean the crime reported. You know, there's a difference between reduction in crime rate and then reduction in the crimes reported. Okay. So if he's basing his judgment on the fact that the report has trickled down, I can give that to him. But again, what you hear everywhere, bomb blasts here and there, I mean, except you don't see those as crime, right? And on that note, I can say, okay, the IG is right. But I think where we are now is a very critical, how do I say it now, crossroad where we are as a nation. For instance, even the president that is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, he is saying God will judge the bomber, which means a nation is now outsourcing judgment to the Almighty, which is very scary. That the people upon which we have placed our security, the of our lives and property, they are saying that almost helpless, saying we have to invite God to outsource our security to them.
But isn't God the ultimate
No, God has said, I mean, even some people who read the scripture said, behold, I have given you all that pertaining to life and godliness. He has outsourced that to us already.
Pastor Charles Ideho. Oh,
I think you should consider your ministry.
I think your ministry will move.
It will move, right?
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying, that it's very scary.
Okay, Ambrose, the point there is, from across the country here and there, even in Katsina State, there was a report that Katsina State has one of the highest proliferated arms in the country, and all of that. What do you see when conundrums here and there about security?
I think for the obtained time and for the past 7 months, we have been talking about insecurity. And for the past 2 years, it has intensified. and they will have different nomenclatures. The latest nomenclature that was used by security heads are banditry. So whatever nomenclature we give to it, no matter amoebic form it amorphous to, it's all about insecurity. Lives are being lost. Nigeria is basically the only country not at war that have lost so much of its citizens. In fact, it has lost more citizens than Syria, than Yemen, than Afghanistan, than countries that are actually in linear warfare and even the asymmetric warfare. So for a country that have lost thousands of its citizens in the last 6 years, and then the chief of police, the IG, comes to tell us that crime rate is reducing. Now, his report is based on what? Is crime rate reducing from the last month's statistics? Because, for example, if you take the statistics of crime rate before, let's say 7 years ago, that is maybe at 8%, and it's skyrocketed to 20-something percent, and you tell me that it has reduced to 18%, is that a reduction? Mathematically, it's a nullity. So the IG of police,
but he was comparing the figures month to month, and he said
so
well,
he shouldn't compare it month to month.
But if you aggregate it,
yeah,
I don't think
it's insecurity. So you should compare it to where we were, where Nigerians went to sleep with their two eyes closed.
Okay, now Charles, some analysts have said that all of these challenges we have now, a mix of security, mix of economy, mix of politics, mix of all of this, without suspicion, whatever it is, are ingredients of a developing nation, that most of the developed countries you find today passed one time or the other, passed through this kind of commotion. So we're still
who wrote that law?
Oh, well, there are comments that were made.
I mean, if it's a law that, of course, that before, I mean, it's a compulsory ingredient for growth. I don't think
it may not be compulsory, but what they're saying is not necessarily new. It's not necessarily new. So Nigeria is not.
But if it is not new, doesn't make it right. Now there are countries, countries in the world. Okay, there are certain of them that have passed through a certain inglorious path. But when they look at the history of that country have passed through inglorious, they guard against it. That's how it is. You don't have to necessarily
like Rwanda that have this slogan "Never again."
Okay,
and
but
everybody, every citizen has that slogan.
I asked a question. That's
an ideology.
No, Ambrose. Rwanda that is on the path of growth today. You remember the pogrom? You remember what happened over there?
The genocide.
So the genocide. You are saying the country must pass through genocide? No, that's
we even had a genocide, and yet we didn't learn from it.
For 3 years.
From 1967 to 70.
What the president must do in this second stanza of his leadership is that he must activate the hire or fire, policy, that people have been given one leadership or one responsibility or the other to superintend over certain things. If you are found wanting, you are fired. Because if you do that, people will sit up. That's what I'm saying. Because
do you see the president having that temperament as to?
No, that's why we're advising him. That's what we're advising him to do. He may not have it, but I'm saying you smell most of them. They listen to they watch us. That he must activate either hire and fire or hire or fire, whichever comes first. Policy that if you don't shape up, you ship out. If you do that, most of it, I mean, all these things, if everybody like IG knows all these security agents, they know that their jobs are on the line, they will do something.
All right. The president has said, well, all those who saw him as Baba go slow, he's going to shock them this dispensation. So we'll wait to see that shock. We have to live in here now.
Since May 29, we are still waiting for the ministerial list.
Waiting for Godot.
So I don't know the
It's
shock.
all right. We wait to see
I'm not shocked.
We wait to see how things will play out.
Yeah, he might speed up.
I'm Bruce Igboke. Thank you very much for coming on the program. Charles Ideho, thank you very much. Thank you.
Is making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio a journalist, Charles Ideho, and broadcast journalist and public relations consultant, Ambrose Igboke. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let's head straight to the papers now, and I start with the Daily Times. Our reformed 9th House of Reps, Vals Gbajabiamila, pledges to rebuild on achievements of predecessor, says opposition will be carried along. To the front page of the Daily Trust, fears over Boko Haram resurgence after 30 killed, families victims recount ordeal. And to the front page of the Nigerian News Direct, suicide bombers kill 30, injure 42 others in Borno. Air Force returns to Sambisa Forest. On the front page of the Vanguard, Oshodi-Akpakpa Expressway, no concrete plans to restore lasting sanity. Well, that's an investigation. And we move to The Guardian. Listen to Obasanjo others. Fulani leaders urge Buhari caution president over crisis across nation. 30 confirmed killed, 42 injured in fresh Borno attack. Tension in Taraba as suspected herders sack communities. NYSC ponders safety of core members. On the front page of the Blueprint, Kogi Bayelsa Post, test for EU IRI NDI reports. INEC says we can't deregister parties. 20 APC Guber aspirants reject indirect primaries. And to the front page of the New Telegraph, APC goes spiritual as Supreme Court decides Adeleke Oyetola's fate. Apex Court fixes July the 5th for judgment on Osun Guber polls. INEC APC asks Supreme Court to dismiss PDP's appeal. And finally, on the front page of the Daily Sun, God will judge suicide bombers. President Buhari speaking there, 31 killed in Borno attack. Well, really sad incidents there on the issues of security. But then let's look at the story on the front page of the Daily Times, where Femi Gbajabiamila is saying that he will reform the 9th House of Representatives. I wonder what form or what kind of reform you expect he will be bringing to the table now. Ambrose, let's start with you.
Well, I think the first reform I want to hear is the humongous allowances and take-home pays. You are touching a sensitive issue.
That's a sore point. Don't go there.
It's a sensitive issue, Ambrose.
That's
Don't
the
go
first
there.
reform
Okay, that
I
is
want.
what you expect now.
So,
this is your opinion.
You know,
That's not a reform. That's a reform.
They say they are progressives, you know, and now the progressive are in the pure leadership and control. So the Nigerians are be agitating that a progressive should sacrifice for his country, that they are there in public service. So it's a public service.
Ambrose.
Therefore, they
For
should.
which
Is that a reform?
They are collecting hundreds and millions per year. It's not done anywhere. So first of all, they should cut down their allowances. They should cut down what their take-home pay. So Nigerians will now start taking them seriously.
You know the kind of resistance he will face.
No,
and
no,
the kind of
he's promised reform, and this is the reform I'm looking up to.
Okay.
Secondly, when they are finished dealing with themselves, sanitizing their own homes in terms of the evil pay they take home.
Evil.
Yes, it's evil to, it's very evil to Nigerian conscience that somebody is taking home millions, several millions of a public officer while minimum wage is just 30,000 naira. So let them purge themselves of that. Then the next is to go to the executive. I also saw how they can prune down the cost of ostentatious lifestyle of the executive, so that Nigerians can save more money. Because when you see the overheads in our budgets, the recurrent expenditure, it's so humongous. Then the third thing I'd like them to do is the transparency of the CBN. That CBN should be made very, very transparent. Then the next one I'm looking at is they should have.
When you say CBN should be transparent, you need to break that.
Well, first of all, we don't know the budget of CBN. We don't know how they spend our money. We don't know what is happening there. I get to the point now. And so we need to know what is the budget for, how much are they allowed to spend, how much is being released. We need to monitor that because it's our money that we're housing there.
Ambrose, this man wants to reform the 9th Assembly. You
Yes,
agree with CBN?
No, what I'm saying is that
problem with CBN?
no, what
He's
I'm saying is
going
that the law,
Okay.
the laws they are set, they are lawmakers.
Yeah.
It is the reformation of the laws of our country is what I'm looking at. I get to the point because they are the lawmakers. So once they do their take-home package, first I've started with them. Let them reduce that. Then Nigerians will start taking them seriously about internal reorganization.
But Nigerians voted them in the first place. So if you are saying they are not taking them seriously, how did they get there?
No, in terms of his promise, that's what I'm saying.
All right.
In terms of the promise that I'm going to, reform them. When they reform their salary, then we will take them seriously.
Is it about their salary now?
But see, Ambrose, if people at Nkano local government in Nkano South, Abe West in Enugu ask you to come there, will you say they should reduce your salary? I know the answer anyway. Don't answer me. The reform is quite welcome, and he's been there for a while. You understand the workings, you understand the intricacies and all this thing about the green chambers. So, and he's somebody who has desired to head that place for quite a while because 2015 was there as the favored candidate until the first one was playing on them. And so, but now that he has gone there, and then he's going to superintend over the affairs of that green chamber for the next 4 years. What I intend to see is that he needs to reach out. As thankfully he said he's going to build bridges across, party lines,
yes,
which is good because we need a cohesive green chambers, so that all this being too militant is not going to pay all of us. When you are too militant in your approach, militant in your responses and all your interfacing with the executive, it's not going to help us. That's what I think. Not necessarily have to say they have to be a rubber stamp. No. So that's on the one hand. Or then the issue of what the take-home pay. Yeah, take-home pay has a problem, but if they actually work to earn it, I don't have a problem with that. Okay. So
all the while they haven't been working to earn it?
I personally, I see they have not worked optimally. Okay, they can. What I mean by something, there are so many bills that are piling up there. There has to be an expedited action on those bills, the bills that will help you and I, the bills that will drive the economy, drive the polity. So there should not be food dragging. All this issue of infighting, and then you should ensure that whoever is a round peg should be put in a round hole when they are sharing this, sharing these committees, so that things will go on, as they say in Nigeria, you know.
When you say that they have their take-home pay, I mean, there's what Pope Francis called voodoo economics.
Where is that practice?
Yeah, voodoo economics is when you take so much from the poor at the expense of the few rich. And we are spending public money here. You're saying they are working for it. I don't see.
No, I said if they can, if they work to earn it. That's why I say if they work to earn it.
There's no justification for the kind of take-home pay the National Assembly members are doing. We are working. We are here working.
So all
Nigerians
of these reforms you think will make the House of Rep effective in the 9th Assembly and this dispensation? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, well, let me just box it into one. Yeah. I'll box into one. First of all, it has to build bridges. Build bridges. Build bridges meaning that if anybody is found, it may not be in his party, it may not be in the progressives, but he found to be a square peg. Let's put that in the proper
He says he's going to build on the achievements of his predecessor, Ambrose. What exactly might that be?
Well, one of the legacies of the 8th Assembly was the number of bills they were able to pass.
The one they hardly did while they had the twilight.
Sent, to the president. And especially the electoral law bill, they have to focus on that first, because there are so many things wrong. Like when we had this issue of transmission of results, INEC server and no server, it is still not in our law. Electronic, voting is not still recognized by law. We saw what happened during the Wike issue in the Supreme Court and how we relied on the voters register and not the card. So please let them quickly set that so that we can use it for there are some 1 or 2 elections that are coming up this year and next year. So let's quickly do that so that we can use the latest law for that. And then the next thing I want them to do, please, the modular refinery, they should bring a law that will allow modular small refineries as well as modular power grid, so that we can have a multiplicity of power plants and refineries around the country.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you for your contribution on the newspaper review. Well, you're watching TVC Breakfast and we're streaming live on YouTube. You can connect with us on Twitter using the hashtag TVC Breakfast. Still to come on the show, African government. Head
into the papers now, see what the headlines are saying. And I have with me a journalist, Charles Ideho, as well as another broadcast journalist and public relations consultant, Ambrose Sigvoke. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. Right. Let's begin with the Daily Times. That's where we start from this morning. I'll reform 9th House of Reps, vows Gbajabiamila, that's the new speaker, pledges to build on achievements of predecessor, says opposition will be carried along. That's a statement credited to the Speaker of the House of Reps. Okay, from there, let's go to the Daily Trust. Fears over Boko Haram resurgence after 30 killed. Families, victims recount ordeal. You can find on the front page of the Daily Trust. From there now, let's go to the Nigerian News Direct. News Direct says suicide bombers kill 30, injure 42 others in Borno. Air Force returns to Sambisa Forest. You can find that on News Direct. Okay. Now, Vanguard is our next paper now. The Vanguard is saying, Oshodi-Apapa Expressway, no concrete plans to restore lasting sanity. Investigation is revealing that. Okay. And The Guardian will be our next paper. Listen to Obasanjo. Others, Fulani leaders urge Buhari a caution president over crisis across nation. And 30 confirmed killed, 42 injured in fresh Borno attack. Tension in Taraba as suspected herders sack communities. And NYSC ponders safety of core members. Okay, you can find all that on the front page of The Guardian. Blueprint will be our next port of call. Kogi, Bayelsa State polls test for EU, IRI, NDI reports. INEC is revealing that and says we can't deregister parties. 20 APC Goba aspirants reject indirect primaries. Okay, that's on the Blueprint. New Telegraph is the next one now. New Telegraph says APC goes spiritual as Supreme Court decides Adeleke Oyetola's fate. Apex Court fixes July 5th for judgment on Osun Goba polls, and INEC APC asks Supreme Court to dismiss PDP's appeal. You can find all that on the front page of the New Telegraph. Daily Sun is the next one now, and the last one for this morning. God will judge suicide bombers. President Buhari is credited to have said that. And 31 killed in Borno attack. You'll find that on the front page of the Daily Sun. All right, gentlemen, the story on the front page of the Blueprint will interest you. Kogi Bayelsa polls test for EU, IRI, NDI reports, according to INEC. The EU reports is still throwing controversy all over the place. But before 2023, which is the next general election, we're going to have about 6 to 7 elections, or staggered elections, so to say, maybe with other by-elections as we get along. Kogi State, Bayelsa State, Anambra State, Edo State, Ekiti, and Osun, as well as Ondo State. These states will certainly be conducting their governorship election before 2023. What should we be looking at, considering what INEC should do from the EU reports that made some recommendations as to how to improve? Charles, let me start with you.
Well, we can't discountenance that report because it's, when you look at it, it's holistic in terms that it will take us from point A to point B in cleaning our electoral process. INEC, for instance, I mean, it has, I can say here that with a degree of confidence that the staggered election platform we have now is a kind of blessing in disguise. Blessing in disguise is that you can use one test to test run, because if you get it right in these staggered elections, then you can now benchmark it and take it to when we now have to run election that is national. But over time, Ireland had not been able to take advantage of that when we had, as Ambrose called it, for inconclusive elections, you know, in Osun.
Exactly, because I was going to ask that between 2015 and 2019, we had these staggered election, and how much?
No, we're saying what can we do now? No, that's in the past. We're making projections for the future. Yeah. The INEC may have got it wrong, but we can still dust all the fires and see how we can bring some of these things. So, okay, where we went wrong, let's see how we can plug the loopholes and then jumpstart. Now, one of the things I want the INEC to be empowered to do, I know it was Ganifa Emi of Blessed Memory that went to court, was supposed to secure an injunction that INEC has no right to deregister, but I think we should revisit that. With the parties we have now, they're also a burden on INEC. When you have about the affairs of 93 parties, some of them will say they are contenders, some of them are pretenders.
And they're still talking about bringing in
more, but we're going to have about 100. So if we have a manageable size of party for about 5, for instance, I think it can also help INEC to be able to supervise elections and then get it right.
Ambrose, when it comes to the issue of ability to deregister political parties and all of that, Nigerians feel that, in fact, if you speak to a lot of Nigerians, in as much as there is a right to create new political parties, how about deregistering the ones that are not functional?
Well, during the election period, I prescribed some actions I think should be taken. First of all, INEC cannot operate from outside the confines of the law. Therefore, the National Assembly needs to empower INEC. The electoral bill that was hanging, that was declined assent by the president, has to be revisited immediately. When we dust up that electoral bill, let's look at the consensus of the president, of President Buhari, And then we can address those concerns, and then the issues can be sorted out. And let's represent it, because what happened was that they threw away the baby with the bathwater. That was what happened then. So let's represent that bill immediately. That should be the priority of this 9th National Assembly, and then let's get that done. Then I prescribed during the general election that we should categorize the political parties. Every particular political can just not come in the frame and then throw their hats in the ring. It doesn't work that way. So what we can do is that we should have local parties, we should have state parties, regional parties, and then national parties.
But when you say regional parties, the Constitution doesn't recognize.
No, that's what I'm saying. When we have that, the Constitution recognizes parties. It is left for us as people to make laws that can regulate the activities of political parties. So if an election, if a political party comes and says, I want to win Ikosi Council, it is the right of the political party. That is where they are seeking political power. But that every party that is registered can play at national level is what I don't understand. So let's categorize the political parties that way. Then when you are coming to register your political party, you know which group you belong. And then that will bring out the criteria.
So the number, but that will be difficult.
It's legislation.
The number of your spread for local government determine whether you can
go by default.
Yeah, and then the number of states, and then the number of states you also spread will determine you're going to the national level. Is that
now there are criteria for you to be able to contest for presidency, that you must have office in 36 states of the country. So those criteria are not new. But what we are now saying is, okay, let's empower, let's be strategic about it. Let's put it into the law and say, okay, each level categorization has its criteria. And then when you meet this criteria, you will. If you want it to be a regional party tomorrow, you can.
Just like they do in the English Premiership League, where
nationwide, and
clubs can be relegated and promoted to the
EPL and all of that. Between Charles, me, and Mike, we can come up and say, okay, we want a political capture a particular area. We don't need to encumber ourselves with going to play at the national level.
You see, that kite you are flying, why it may not fly is that you might restrict people from playing on a plane, I mean, the field, throwing the field open. Now, instead of legislating the segmentation, you are by default, parties' operational base can now define whether they are national or they are local, rather than say, okay, you categorize.
But that is why we have 73.
But that's why we have over close to 100 political parties.
What I'm saying first is that parties should be allowed to be registered. If we're not directing it to be allowed, but when INEC looks at their operation, their operational base, and he can now look at, okay, we have looked at you for a while. We see that you are strong in Koshofe. Okay, you don't have any.
No, if there's no legislation to that,
exactly. It won't stand.
That's why we say we have to put
it won't stand if there is no legislation.
We have to structure it.
Like Ambrose said, INEC cannot operate outside
the law. I understand that.
Exactly. If you say, okay, a new political party, there is a standard for in fact, just like they have a standard for registering a political party.
Exactly. You don't have to be anywhere.
The standard is that if you're just starting, you must be able to,
to gain
a certain level before you graduate to the next level.
You have the clout to be a national party. Nothing stops you.
It's all right.
There are the criteria that are set out. If you meet them, even at the initial stage, fine and good. But if you don't meet them, you can go lower.
You see, that's what we also bring its own set of challenges. What I'm saying first is that if we can have the political will and muster political mind and hand this over to INEC, INEC was okay. We can even legislate. We don't need more than 5 parties in Nigeria.
No, that would be even more cumbersome.
No, it cannot.
But that would be more challenging because the point there is that just like the law has said, everyone has the right.
But it means
you might say it means that you're robbing people of their rights.
No, okay, but hold on. Okay, Mike, let me quickly rub this one. Let me quickly rub this one.
We have. You have the local community radio, community broadcasting.
Of course.
You have the state.
Oh, that's different. That's different.
Yeah, the licenses are in categories.
You may say the 2 parties that we had, NRS were decreeing into existence.
Yes.
But look at how much gain we made, even because it was lifted.
It was a military era.
Yeah, it was a military era.
But it cannot work now.
But the point there is,
I mean, 5 at most.
Supreme Court has settled these cases.
International analysts have said that the worst democracy still remames the best, or becomes better
when you compare to
best military. Exactly.
But again, we have to take away from the military era. I mean, the most development we have enjoyed in Nigeria were during the
I
military
beg to
era.
disagree.
Oh, well,
come on.
a lot of
Give me-
Nigerians
give
will
me-
disagree because a lot of Nigerians will tell you,
give me
all right,
what you
gentlemen, we have to end it here
No,
now.
we can't end it, we can't
No,
end
no,
it.
we have to
We
end it
can't
here.
end it.
No, we have to end it here now.
Because the military has had more time.
The point there is, Nigerians have said where we are right now, it is because of the military. Because if we had
because of
continued,
freedom, because of freedom.
if we had continued
Anyway.
with our democracy since 1966,
would have gotten
been would have been far. All these mistakes now would have
Yeah,
been
we
done in
are
the
corrected.
70s and 80s.
That's
Let's
what
leave it here
debatable.
now.
That's
Charles
what debatable.
Ideho.